health
say a little
insurance,
prayer for you.
gang violence on the rampage, young
I
people
say
are
a
getting
little
shot
prayer
in the
for
streets,
you.
marriages after years are breaking
I
up.
say a little prayer for you.
How can we let children get shot down in school?
I
How
gotta
can we do
pray
this?
every day, y'all.
Children
I
getting
gotta
gassed.
pray every day,
That's
y'all.
just not right.
I gotta pray every
We don't even
day.
uphold children no more.
I gotta pray every day, y'all.
Jesus, have mercy.
You need prayer.
God, we need you.
I need prayer. I gotta pray every day, Lord.
Jesus, have mercy.
I gotta pray every day, Lord. I gotta pray every day, Lord. Lord, help me on my way.
I say a little prayer for you.
I say
I say a little prayer for you.
I say a little prayer.
I say a little prayer for you.
I gotta make it in this world today.
I say a little prayer for you.
Hey, people on the street got nowhere to sleep, got no food to eat. It's a bad situation. How can you shoot your brother from another mother? How can you say you love him when you don't love yourself? The world needs more peace. I gotta pray every day, y'all. I gotta pray every day, y'all. I gotta pray every day.
I say a little prayer for you.
I'm gonna say a little prayer for you.
I say
Yes,
a little
I am.
prayer for you.
I'm gonna say a little prayer. Oh
I say a
yeah.
little prayer for you.
I'm gonna say a little prayer.
I say a little prayer for you.
Hey, so how can you hate my color? Hey, when we come from one another. Hey, I say a little prayer for you. Yes, I do.
prayer for you.
How can you talk about me? I'm gonna
Say a little prayer for you.
How can you look down on your brother?
Say a little prayer for you.
How can you walk past trouble?
I say a little prayer for you.
You need to help one another.
Say a little prayer for you.
We all trying to make it.
I say a little prayer for you.
I can't make it. Howdy. Howdy, y'all. Howdy, y'all. How y'all doing this morning? You know what? It is so good to be here. We got a great show in store for you. Hey, we're going to be talking about some televangelists, okay? So you, oh, who's that laughing back there in the background?
That was me because I love the way you say it every time. And you know what? They don't deserve, in my opinion, the greatest of intros anyway. So I'm okay with it.
Okay, well,
I'm
thank
very
you.
okay with it.
But we got some great guests. You know what? I want to thank you for coming on the show this morning. And you know what? If by some chance, if you didn't make the live, you can see the replay. Tell your friends and that, your friends and your family that they can see the replay. Don't forget to do some live chatting. We want to know what your thoughts are, and we want you to ask your questions to our panel this morning. All right. But we're going to be talking about televangelists. Okay. For our guests, we have Harold, and we have from the conversation on Kiani Productions YouTube channel. Also, we have Ray Jordan, and we're excited about that, Pastor Ray Jordan. We got Clarence Carnegie, and that's my husband. So glad to have you, Clarence. And we, of course, we got our co-host Keone and your host Lessette. So we're glad to be here. All right. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right, so you can get all the updates. But we got a great topic this morning because this is a very needed topic, and to me, it's serious because when you love people, you want people to be treated right. All right. So, how was your weekend, by the way? Did y'all have a great weekend?
Excellent.
Excellent.
I got
All
some.
right, now you know what?
Hey,
I
hey,
did. Oh, we don't need my answer. Okay, let's
No,
set
no,
move
I
on.
want your answer. Go on, say your answer, please.
See, you know what?
I'm trying
Harold,
to cut you out. I ain't trying to
Harold,
cut you out.
oh Lord, Harold's not used to this, Clarence. But Clarence knows me and Lisette. We fight every morning. We fight
exactly.
every morning. We love each other. This is how we get along.
Hmm.
She drives me crazy, and I drive her crazy, and we love each other for it. Uh,
I love to drive him crazy, believe me, because he
Mm.
drives me crazy too. He knows he do. But you know what? It's all good. It's all in good fun. And if you came up here to have fun today, we're gonna have fun as well. But you know something that my little dog did. You know what? I mean, I don't know if I told you on the last show, but I think I might have told you that my little dog was acting ugly,
Mhm.
terrorizing the neighborhood, all up there, barking all loud. Nobody could get any sleep in the neighborhood, just acting ugly. So you know what we did to him? We
Mhm.
took him to doggy daycare. Yes,
She
we
told it.
yes we took him to doggy daycare. So maybe they can teach him some manners that maybe we can't teach him.
mm,
What do you think?
we
I
never.
don't know, but don't get all the dog activists up there bothering me. And I
Yeah,
love my dog very,
that
very
is funny.
much.
So
But
we picked this topic today because everyone on the screen is religious to different extents. I'm probably the least on the screen. Everybody knows that already, but I am still Christian. I believe in God and I believe in Jesus. And one of the things that's always bugged me is televangelists, mega churches. But before mega churches, there were televangelists. That was the start of it, right?
Mhm.
And then before that, when you didn't have the televangelists or you didn't have the mega churches, you had your pastors and your preachers that were awesome for the community, awesome for the learning, awesome for the teachings of God. And
mhm,
then you had your ones that were just there
Right.
because it was a job for them. It was a way to live tax free in certain areas and to make money. And in those churches, you saw that the people treated different based on their status in the church. Now, I don't fault the church is the way society is overall, but the church is supposed to be different. So that's why we came up with this topic today. But before we get into some clips and some discussion about certain clips, I'd like to ask each one of you, what do you think about televangelists and megachurches? I'll start with you, Clarence.
Well, I think it only takes a few to make people become delusional, this. I don't know what's the word. What's the right word? There's a word for it. People lose their faith, lose their confidence in pastors because of a few pastors. They see the overall church as being like corrupt and all about money, and that's not necessarily so. But all it takes is just a few. And so, if you live in a particular neighborhood, like around where I live, there's probably, I don't know, 25 churches in a 5 mile radius. And you may go to a church. I heard a pastor once. He said the church is a business. So if the church is a business, then you're running like a business. He said, well, I'm like a bus driver, and people get on the bus and people get off the bus. That sort of sounds a little bit uncaring, does it not? I'm just saying. And so people hear stuff like that and they start feeling like preachers are just there to get paid, just to get money. And so it should be about saving souls, helping people build a relationship with Christ, and also become closer with one another, have more love and fellowship with one another. But it just takes a few pastors.
So what are you saying? We should get the ATMs out of there?
Well, I don't think it's a great idea, to be honest with you, because when I go to church, I already know what I'm putting in church. I have it in my pocket. I do not need an ATM machine. But it almost signifies that we're about money. We're really about money, and if you didn't bring enough money, and if I can influence you to put a little more money, use your card. I got ATM machine. Use your card.
And I'm gonna go to the next person. I always throw in the jokes, but I don't think every church that has an ATM there is being facetious or money grabbing. But like Clarence says, it gives the illusion. You
Yeah,
always want to think about aesthetics. People say you shouldn't care about aesthetics, but aesthetics make up a big deal, a
it
big
does.
portion of how we think.
Yes.
Lissette.
I think it's great if you got it like that and you can pack the house like that. That's awesome. I would love to sing at a mega church. I don't have any problem with it. However, you know, I don't like the bad connotation of the mega church theme of seemingly wanting money, but at the same time, I know a mega church is going to need a lot more money than a little church on the corner. That's common sense. They're
True.
going to need more money to more lights. The bill is going to be higher. It's going to take more money to heat and cool the place. So of course they're going to need more money. But I don't believe that it should be all about money. And I believe in my heart that if your congregation is hungry and you're being fed, something's wrong with that problem. If you can walk away, you can leave the house and you can go out to the lavish of restaurants and eat. And you got some members in your congregation that don't have any food, or they can barely go scrape up a little food to feed their children. Something is wrong with that. It's a lot wrong with it, and that is not the love of Christ. So that's how I feel about that.
Well, the problem with well, not the problem because you said some good things at the end there, but the problem is what you just said in the beginning, and I know you, and I know what you mean, but that's one of the biggest problems with the mega churches and where these televangelists work. They use that excuse of bigger house, bigger bills, but we're finding out that the bills that it costs to run a mega church is barely 5 to 10% of what they're earning. You have a mega church earning $3 billion a year, and their bills are not even $10 million.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people in that packed house who are getting evicted, can't eat, but they're turning over that last dollar because they think life is going to get better the more money that they put into that church. So that's where the
Huh.
disconnect comes with a
Yeah.
lot of the audience and a lot of the people that emailed and text about sending this because that's always been a long run excuse. Hey, bigger house, more bills. But it
Mm-hmm.
still pales in comparison to what they're spending and actually need. And a lot of things they're getting is written off in taxes. So
Uh-huh.
that kind of helps in that department. Harold?
Well, I guess we've always had conversations, and my concern has always been, is it about capitalism or is it about Christianity?
Mm,
And I think what happens is sometimes people get lost in the sauce when it comes to grabbing the bag,
Mm.
and they put money over the Messiah. And,
Come on.
and so when we do those things, you know, it turns a lot of people off, but it also misrepresents what the true message of the gospel is about, because many of the televangelists and many of the churches will have you to believe the more you give, the more blessed you will be. And
Come
whatever
on.
blessing God has for you, it's for you, no matter how much you give or how much you don't give.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
If He has an intended blessing for you,
Mm-hmm.
then that's what you're going to receive. Now, if you're being, and I, the hosts don't know me very well, but the bottom line is if you're being brainwashed to believe that you have to give X amount of dollars
Ooh.
in order to receive a blessing, then that's misleading in many respects because, if you even go to the text, the woman gave all she had with two mites, and she was blessed even more than many who may have given more. So it's a condition of the heart when you're tapping on your people, but these individuals who may in some instances be manipulative. Like I said, the moment you put money over the Messiah, you've misled the people into a false message and a false narrative of really what Christianity is all about. And last time I checked, and this is coming from one of my mentors, the gospel is to be told, not sold.
That's
Ooh.
good. And you know what? It reminds me also
Mm.
when Christ would go and lay hands on people, he didn't ask them, well, how much money you got? Is this the get in the $25 line or the $100 line or the $500,000 line. He said, your faith. All you need is your faith. That's it. He didn't say you need a whole some money to get healed or to
Hmm.
be a Christian or say, I'm not going to say a Christian because sometimes the word Christian now they try to make that so dirty, but it's not dirty. The word's supposed to mean Christ-like, but sometimes nowadays it don't always mean Christ-like. Where some have taken the word and just smothered it, try to mutate it. But
Sure.
to be a disciple, a follower of Christ, you don't have to have money, and yes, sometimes the Lord might ask you to do something like he told the one man. He said, "Well, go wash at the pool," you know, or go and wash at the. He told him some, maybe some ridiculous thing or something ridiculous that we was like, why I got to do that? But he didn't actually tell him to pay something for your miracle. He didn't do that.
So you saying Jesus didn't take up tithes and offering and so forth from the people? Isn't that
I don't
almost
recall him doing that. No,
isn't that almost amazing?
it is amazing, isn't it?
I'm just saying. You
It
know,
is. It is amazing.
I
What
heard
he
it.
told them, he told them to give.
Well, you know, I
Sometimes
heard a televangelist on television a while back. He said that he had been wrong when he was teaching people about tithing. He said that you should not have to tithe. That stuff about if you don't give 10%, you're not pleasing God and you're going to hell. He said that's ridiculous. He said you should give from your heart. Give how you are led to give according to the way that you've been blessed. And I was like, that's pretty awesome because I've been saying that for years and years and years.
Well, it's simple math for me. If you're giving more, I don't even care if it's a mega church, small church, tiny church. If you're giving 10 times more to your church than they're giving to the community, that's a problem. If it's a multi-million dollar earning church,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care that you're doing a fish fry once a month. The whole purpose of being tax exempt is because they're supposed to provide for the community. I've
Exactly.
seen way too many places. Now, I'm not talking about small churches that are barely making it, and they're in bad communities. But sometimes you go into a place and it's the most beautiful, immaculate church you've ever seen, and they're raking in the dough, and the very people around them are on welfare or food stamps or EBT or whatever you want to call it, and that's when it comes a problem for me. But Harold said something about the message. Harold, did you freeze?
No,
Oh no, you didn't
I'm
freeze.
here.
He's
Okay.
good.
I'm just
He
still.
said something about a message, and I think that's one of the biggest things, how far you get away from the message and how you're lost. But speaking of messages, let's get into our first clip that comes from Reason and Theology. And it's one of my favorite televangelists to watch and make fun of, Robert Tilton. I don't know if you
Okay.
know of Robert Tilton. Oh, him.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's take a listen at his opening here.
See, Bob, I can't send $100. If you can just worship God through $5 or $10, every Apostle Paul said the first of each week lay aside as God hath prospered you. That's why I believe God prospers people. Satan gave me this message. It's a lie of the devil. I shouldn't have said that. God gave me this message.
No, I agree with the first one. Satan gave you
Satan
that
gave it to
message.
him.
I look. He forgot where he was, and that's the thing.
Well,
Uh, Here's that thing. You three speak on this. It's when you want to tell someone to do something, and you take an excerpt or a message from the Bible, and you put it together, and that's
uh-huh.
how you convince that person that this is what you need to do, because Paul said you lay aside. So send me my money.
Send me my money. I need your money worse than you do. Always be aware when you go somewhere, when you go to church, and somebody else have their hand down in your pocket. I've talked about that for years. Uh, Me and my wife went to a service one time, and a preacher got up and he preached well. And we left the service. Before we went, I gave my wife the last money I had in my pocket.
Mm.
And so the next day, we went to the grocery store and we got some groceries. We went up there to pay for it, I looked at her and she looked at me. I knew what that look meant. I was supposed to pay for it, but I had given her the money. So I looked at her. I said, "So you put it in church last night?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Isn't it awesome how that preacher can go to Golden Corral, Red Lobster, anywhere the raw food place, anywhere he want to go and eat, and we can't even afford this little bag of chicken, this pack of rice, and loaf of bread that we was trying to get." I said, "That's enough to make a preacher cuss."
Mm.
I'm just saying, I was really upset, but I've been trying to teach her for years that you don't have to give all that you got at church in order for the Lord to bless you. Just like Harold said a few minutes ago. Come on now. You don't have to just dig down in your pocket and give your grocery money, your bill money, and all that kind of stuff. You shouldn't be obligated to give a certain amount anyhow. Have you ever noticed that a lot of churches, when it's about tax time, they have big programs going on and so forth? That's so
Mm.
they get that tax dollars. It's a
Well, see,
strategy.
well, see, that's the part that messes me because you have a person like Lissette that's doing that, and she's doing it from the heart. She's not doing it
That's
because
right.
she's thinking, "Hey, I'm gonna give up my money, and now I'm gonna get a giant house and be blessed, and everything's gonna fall from the sky." She's
Right.
doing it to be a major supporter of that church and community, and those are the ones that are most susceptible to do that. Now, she's not giving it for you to get a brand new car. She's giving it because she's thinking it's going to help the church, help the community. Now, and I always have to pause and do this. Everyone that's listening, we're not canvassing churches. If you
No.
just chimed in, we're not bashing Christianity or churches. We're talking about televangelists and mega churches. We know a lot of churches. We've gone to those churches that do the right thing, send the right message, and do the right thing for the community. So I don't want anybody who just chimed in to think we're on here bashing religion or churches. Lisette,
No.
I know your mouth opened a couple times while you want to talk. Don't bash him over the head when we get done. Now, why you told that story?
No, I would not do that because I would not do that because, for one thing, yes, I did give it from my heart, but I had to learn wisdom,
Yeah.
and I had to learn wisdom as well because you have to give it according to how God has increased you. Also, give according to what God telling, speak in your heart, not what somebody's taxing you or what they're trying to make you do. You know what is in your household, what your family needs, and if you don't provide for your family, then you're worse than an infidel. You got to make sure your household is taken care of. At the same time, I'm a giver and I love to give. I enjoy giving, but I had to learn how to give the right way. I had to put some stipulation because I be done just gave. That's the way I roll. And believe it or not, I gave and I did receive back. I got some gifts back when I gave. I mean, I got some good stuff back because of the way I gave it.
Now,
But at
wait.
the same time, I still had to learn restrictions.
But do you honest and I'm not saying this to be facetious, I'm asking you, do you honestly think you got those gifts because you gave, or were you gonna get those gifts anyway because you believe?
Well, you know
That's a good
what?
question.
It's a mixture. It was a testing of my faith on some of the gifts that I gave. It was a test. To me, it was a test. For one thing, have you ever seen anybody that's so stuck on their money that their hand just like this, won't nothing go in, won't nothing go out? And it kind of reminds me of the evangelicals. They're tight. They see that person in need, but they won't even open a hand to give to those of. It can go both ways in that. Are you that type of a giver? Are you tidy? You know, I ain't giving it to nobody. I ain't giving nothing. And you
Well,
ain't gonna get nothing either.
sure. In the midst of that statement, isn't it
No.
amazing? Isn't it amazing how much they receive with that tight hand that they have?
Hey,
Hmm.
it
You know,
Well,
may be. It may be. But at the same time, that don't mean they always keep. That's why they keep always asking for some more.
well,
just
I
saying.
see again seeing both sides of the coin. And this is why it's very troubling for me because I don't want to seem like I'm just bashing, but and I don't want to take words out of Harold's mouth because he's going to speak next. But
Right.
we talk about the difference of seeing a priest or preacher preach, collecting tithes, supporting community, and then when I see a priest or preacher speaking in the same tempo, tone, and mannerisms as a hustler, that's when the two
Come
get
on.
muddled for me.
Ooh,
When
come
you
on.
have that woman or male that's given their last every single time and they've been doing it for 5, 10 years, your blessings are coming. You just got to keep doing it. You got to keep doing it. That's when it gets troubling for me as a human. But again, I understand the difference. I am at a point, we're all older. When we were younger and we went to church, we thought differently than we think now, of course.
That's right.
It's just natural. I can see the difference when I walk. I need to be in a church for about 30 seconds before I know what I'm dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
I know if I need to sit down,
Mm-hmm.
and before I know if I need to just turn around and walk back on out.
Right. Yep.
Harold.
Well, I think as believers, once we come to a certain level in our faith, you have the gift of discernment, and as you're entering into these different services, churches or events, you know, if you rely on and listen to that gift, or employ that gift, it will let you know where your gift should be given.
Mm.
You're not, as one preacher told me a long time ago, mentor of mine. He said, first of all, you don't have to be on every set. Slow down and let God speak to you so that He can work through you. And I think part of the challenges that we have, because I mean, I've been in the church and the preacher said, well, listen, we're getting ready to take offering, and I want you to give an offering based on the cost of your shoes,
Okay.
not what God has purposed in your heart,
Right.
but what the cost of your shoes is basically the minimum or the least you should be giving at this time. Now, some of them folk in there with $300 shoes on, but they may have $20 in the purse. So, I mean, how do you now make these people feel guilty? You feel where I'm going?
Yes.
Yes.
You're making and manipulating people, and this is what turns generations off. We are trying to figure out why the current generations are less churchy, shall I say, for lack of a better term,
That's good.
are less interested in the church
Mm-hmm.
than the previous generations. Now, some of that does stem from this whole manipulation piece from when we were first brought here as slaves. Which is why they created and crafted a slave Bible, and they took out certain scriptures so that it would not assist them in understanding that they had a right to stand up for themselves, meaning the slaves.
That's right.
That's the manipulation that took place then, and now knowing that slavery, the backbone of slavery is capitalism. So now we've now brought that into the church for the most part. And now with the capitalistic mindset, everybody's trying to see, what we're doing as far as offerings. And even I heard another senior preacher say a long time ago that, I come to your church and we have services. You come to my church and we have services. He said, listen, we've been doing this for a long time, but all we're doing is swapping offerings.
There we go.
Of course.
And so
And
you
taxing the
hear
same people.
you hear a lot of this coming out, nowadays more so than in years past because things were done from a tradition or religious standpoint. When our focus needs to be on our relationship, because if you have a relationship with the Father, then you know exactly, in many cases, where He's going to lead you, moving things forward. But I think, as we look into this thing with mega churches, I care less about the size of your church
Come
if
on.
you're actually fulfilling the mission that Christ has commanded us to fulfill. So I
Exactly.
don't care if you got 100,000 members or 10 members. If you're out there doing what Christ has purposed in your heart to do, then hey, I'm with you 100%, and I will do whatever I can to support and assist.
Yes.
Johnny Knoll says older people feel that if they don't tithe, there won't be a place in heaven for them. Um, and I want to comment on what Harold said about younger people. A lot of younger people, because this is what I've seen in videos and people have written in, uh, because you're talking about the problem with younger people, as you said, you created that new verb, churchy, is when they've watched the people before them
Mm-hmm.
give, and nothing changes in that person's life. Now we know there's other circumstances, right? You just can't give your money at church and then do all the same thing you're doing and think your life's going to change,
Come
right?
on.
Um, but one of the people that wrote in was on the video. Is one reason why we did this is it. I'm not going to show the video. It's very long, but his mom got cancer. Was
Mm-hmm.
going to the church. They told her, "Don't go get chemo. Don't do that. That money that you're going to give for chemo, you give it here. God will heal you.
My,
God
my.
will bless you."
She died.
Watched his mom wither away
Yes.
and die. He stopped going to church. Now, so you've got this woman's money, but what you've done is you just lost another soul
Right.
because you were so busy getting this woman's money while she was dying of cancer. And so you think he's sending his kids to church?
No.
No. So you probably done cut off a whole a whole family tree from
Branch. Yeah.
following the message that you were trying to give. Um, Let me
Mm-mm.
catch up on some of these comments, and then we're gonna get into the next clip. Ken Stevens said Joel Osteen wouldn't even open up his church to the hurricane victims. You know, something that was said earlier is the good excuses when he's talking about the hurricane in Houston,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they were having a problem getting people shelter. Joel Osteen's church is really, 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 really huge. I mean, it's got a mall in it for crying out loud. He
Mm-hmm.
said they just got new floors and we had plumbing problems and all these other things he said. And people, of course, came to his defense.
Mm-hmm.
And we come to find out none of those things were true.
There you
He
go.
just didn't want all those people in his church. So it's kind of bad. Johnny Noel says one of my favorite messages is will
And
a man
Rob
rob
God.
God? That's your friend, right? Well, our friend Lessette, Johnny Noel, right? He was on the show. Thank you, Johnny. At this point in time, education also should be taught in church. I don't know if
Yes.
you mean like public education or church education. You got to clarify me that. And churches are also to teach people how to live and how to eat. I don't want to fault. I can't canvass every pastor of a mega church or televangelist if they live a higher lifestyle, and I'm not going to blanketly assume it all comes from the money from that church because some of these guys do book deals and all these other things and make money. But another one of our favorite ones is Kenneth Copeland. Have y'all heard of him?
Oh, for sure.
Now, this man scares me because sometimes in his eyes, he literally looks like the devil
Come
to me.
on.
But he's one of I think he's either the second or third richest pastor in the entire world. So he got snuck up on by Inside Edition, and I want to show this little clip. The clip is from Inside Edition. It's a full interview. We're not going to show the interview. Kenneth.
Again, getting back to the comment, you said that you don't like to fly commercial because you don't want to get into a tube with a bunch of demons. Do you really believe that human beings are demons?
No, I do not. And don't you ever say I did. We wrestle not with flesh and blood, but principalities and powers.
Can you explain what you meant by that term then? Just explain, because it's really simple. You said you didn't want to get into a tube with a bunch of demons. What did you mean?
Well, let me ask you.
Do you think that people that fly commercial are
If
demons?
you give me a chance to talk, sweetheart, I'll explain this to you. But it's a biblical thing. It's a spiritual thing. It doesn't have anything to do with people. People, I love people. Jesus loves people.
Clarence, I heard you laugh, and Ken is dying. I'm going to immediately go into a next clip because I had a bunch of clip of pastors explaining why they need private jets to
Mm-hmm.
spread their
Okay.
word. And I'm going to tell you a response that and Harold, you're going to love this.
Hey,
Okay.
hey,
I got to put the right screen back on. She asked him because he said he doesn't fly commercial because he doesn't want to be in a tube with demons. And so she asked him, "Do you think people are really demons?" And that's when he pointed. And then when I looked in his eyes, I did not see anything godly in those eyes.
Oh
Right.
wow.
Not at all.
That's right.
You know, and then instead of answering the question, of course, he quoted a Bible verse because that's the play,
Right.
right? And it's amazing.
That's
They
right.
know they know every message in the book from front to back because they know where to put it and how to use it. Um,
That's right.
somebody said, "Yo, play that again." Hold on. You want me to play that again? Give me 1 second, Ken. Okay, let's see if you can. Have you not heard the clips this whole time, Lissette, or just that one?
I just didn't hear that one.
Okay. Did you hear it, Harold and Clarence?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure it's not messing up for
Yeah, we heard it fine.
everybody. Okay, hold on. I have a request to play the clip.
That human beings are demons.
No, I do not. And don't you ever say I did. We wrestle not with flesh and blood, but principalities and powers.
Can you explain what you meant by that term then? Just explain, because it's really simple. You said you didn't want to get into a tube with a bunch of demons. What did you mean?
All right.
There you go.
I want to let you know
There we go. Right there. I just heard it. It just came up when you cut it off.
I
And he
want
said, let me ask you.
I want to let y'all know when y'all are chit chatting in the background, they can hear you.
We could, for some reason, we didn't hear it the second time, but we heard,
It's
heard the
it's
first time.
technology. The audience, Ken says, insane. Yeah, that's the thing. So they were asking him because he said that he doesn't fly commercial because he doesn't want to fly with demons. Now, this one, you don't really have to hear what this guy is saying. You can see the message that's going to come on the screen when asking a bunch of these televangelists and megachurch pastors about needing. Some of them have 2, 3, 4 private jets.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
so here we go.
Of the apocalypse, dude.
The 4 jets of the apocalypse? People would just pay him more money, then we could get to where we need to go. And when criticized for his $54 million plane and his 3 private jets, he said, and I quote, "I really believe that if Jesus was physically on earth today, he wouldn't be riding a donkey." Think about that for a minute. He been
That's very interesting. You know,
Yeah, if Jesus was here today, he wouldn't be riding no stinking donkey.
you know what? I believe if he was here today, he wouldn't allow people to go hungry. He wouldn't allow people to be sick because he would heal all of them, and he wouldn't be charging a head fee at the door or nothing. And just like when he was in the Bible, he fed the 5,000, with 2 fishes and 5 loaves of bread. And first he asked the disciples. He said, "Look out there in the crowd." He said, "What's wrong with this crowd?" He said, "Well," he said they need to, it's time to feed them. Well, we don't have nothing to feed them. We don't have anything to feed them with. Go send them on their way. Let them go find some. He said, "No, you do it. You feed them." That's what he told him. He told him, "You feed them." He said, "Well, we don't have nothing to feed them with." So in other words, before I even get any further with that, he was concerned about whether or not they had eaten anything and what they were going to eat. But the disciples, like they didn't, we got ours. Hey, let them go get their own. It's the wrong attitude.
My favorite thing to ask me and Harold talk about religion is people use the phrase "What would Jesus do?" and yet I see a lot of people use that phrase, but they don't actually do what Jesus would do.
That's
No.
And I know this isn't the topic of televangelists and megachurches, but when you're out here going so hard against people of certain lifestyles or talking certain ways about other people or how we deal with the poor, how we deal with the sick, Jesus dealt with everybody. Am I missing something?
I think what people miss sometimes is some things are used as what I call diversions. So you get up and you preach about other people, other lifestyles and so forth, so people can focus on that and not focus on you and your lifestyle. And preachers have a tendency to convince people that when you give to me, you're giving to God. So they say, give as unto the Lord. And people buy into that. It's sort of a brainwashing thing. And they convince people that they're high and mighty because, I'm the man of God. So I'm the man or the woman of God.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying? So I supposed to live high and mighty. And people buy into to that also. Some
you
people don't mind him having a jet or 4 jets. Some people, they really don't. And that's sad. While they struggle, they don't mind him being high and mighty
I,
because he have made them believe that. Go ahead.
I think one of the problem is because again, I don't want to. I'm not bastardizing every preacher that lives
Right,
off well because I don't know where they get their other money from. But
right,
to the point of what you're saying, it's when you drive a Rolls Royce and I'm too broke to get a bicycle
right.
is my problem, and I'm still offering you money. But one of the things I wanted to talk about in reference to you saying that I was watching a clip. I don't know where the clip is, but I was watching a clip where a televangelist was telling the story, and where you said we're making people believe. He said this woman gave me her last. She said this is the last bit of money I have. It's for my mortgage, but I need to be blessed. He said if you give that, you'll be blessed 3 times over. She gave him her rent check. He said an aunt and uncle that she didn't even know died, and 2 months later they had left her house, which is 3 times bigger than the house she had. And everybody started clapping. I'm like, wait, that don't make no sense.
No,
How did she have an aunt and uncle that she never knew existed, and then they left her a house 3 times bigger? But people will take that story,
right.
and then when they tell those stories, the plate comes around,
Come on.
and then the pockets get empty. That's always been the
And
most
let
troubling part
and
for
let me
me.
say this. All I can say is I have seen times in my life where God have moved because He led me. I'm not saying that the pastor led me or somebody told me. He led me to give. And sometimes it seemed it was my last, but I would give it anyway. And I was immediately blessed from that. Now, I don't know. I know a lot of these people doing a whole lot of, some people are doing some crazy stuff with this, trying to get over on people. I'm not talking about that. But I cannot say all situations, where it does not work because sometimes it does. So
No, but
and
that's
but
not
the
what I'm
way
talking
he
about.
did what he did, he was wrong. He shouldn't have done that, because it's almost
That's
sound
not.
like he's fabricating some stuff, trying to get some stuff, some money
No,
and
that's
stuff.
not what. That's not what I'm talking about. We know the difference between giving your last. I got $10 on me. Let me give it up. What I'm talking about is something drastically different. When
Hmm.
you're all, not your last. This is your rent check. You about to get evicted. You have no money and you're giving it over. That's what I'm talking about. And when you're convincing people that if they give everything they got
Hmm.
and they're going to be blessed and then they're homeless, that's a problem.
It
Well,
is a problem.
I don't want to get, I don't want people to be conditioned to give their last for a blessing that they think might come.
right.
That's basically to me when somebody says that, and I'm not directing that towards you, Lessette. When somebody says that to me, you might as well go to Vegas and gamble.
Might as well.
I feel like
Why are we
Like,
gambling for a blessing?
it's like
that's
playing the
why it's
lottery.
important that you be led of the Lord.
Right,
You got
because
to
you're
be led not
blessing.
by your pastor. You
You're
need to have a relationship with Christ to hear from him
yeah,
yourself. You
yes.
be led. I
That's
mean,
why.
I don't
Yeah,
know what Christ may tell you, but whatever, kind of like Mary said to the servants, whatever he asked you to do, do it. Do that. But be led by God yourself, not by what somebody tell you to do.
right. That's why my point is your blessings. And look, I'm not a preacher. I'm not a pastor. And I'm not the most educated religious person. But your blessings are coming from who you are and what you do. And people need to stop attaching their blessings to a dollar amount. That's my whole point. Whether it's your last, you got more than the last, you got to stop being conditioned to tie your blessings because when you give that money and you get a blessing, your brain is automatically going to say, I got this blessing because I gave my last. So when I get my last again, guess what I'm going to do?
I'm gonna give it.
I'm going to get my blessing. I'm going to
Stop
get my
trying to buy a
last.
blessing. Stop trying to buy
And,
a blessing.
but this is the danger in what I'm saying in that. And
Come
here
on.
you take from wrong. Because when you do it again
Yes.
and that blessing doesn't come, what do some people start doing? Losing faith. And isn't that the
Yeah.
whole point?
Right.
to make people have faith.
Come on now.
So now don't condition people, because then that's going to backfire when they don't feel like they got a blessing because they gave their last.
Exactly.
Harold, am I off base? I mean, y'all tell me, Harold.
Well, I mean, going back to the original premise, you mentioned what would Jesus do? And, my position has always been not focusing on what would he do, because now we're playing a guessing game.
Come on.
Mm.
I would say, what did Jesus do?
Ah,
Yes.
Good
And it's in
point.
his word. So we
mm,
don't have to even ask the question. What did he tell the rich young ruler? Sell all you have and give to who?
The poor.
Come on.
So, that same mindset should be even in our churches as we come in. In other words, if we can meet our quote unquote financial obligations, as you pointed out earlier, John, it was what, 5, 10%?
mm-hmm.
That 90% should be going to the poor,
Come on now.
you know. Or you can put even 5 or 10% in reserves just to make sure if you come into hardships or people leave or something happens, you're still able to. But the problem that we have is we are we are we're finding loopholes and
Yes.
ways to skirt the true mission or commission that Christ gave us
Mm-hmm.
in the long run.
Hmm.
Yeah, if we're going to run it like a business, okay, let's do that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Your business has priorities. If the priority of the church is not the poor or the underserved, then it needs to close its doors. Point blank, period.
And that's good when
And
you said business. When
Yes.
you said business, Harold. Someone said in the comment, "What will they do?"
Oh, wait. We're going to get to that one because I remember, don't read the comments because we fit to caveat this, because this is perfect for Harold, because he hosts the conversation, which is a political show.
All right now.
And one of the things I was going to mention was Copeland on here. They found out he's given more in donations to the representative that he wanted to
mhm,
be governor or senator than to his community. That's a problem. So Joel Noel says, and this is perfect for you, Harold. I will go to you first. What's going to happen when Trump starts taxing the churches?
Well,
they're going to have to ante up and pay up, and many of them will go out of business.
that's right.
The problem is, but see, even when you look for tax, when you got tax laws being implemented,
Mm-hmm.
what do accountants and what do tax preparers do? They look for loopholes.
Yeah.
That's right.
So no matter what is being done, they're going to create loopholes
Yes.
that are going to allow themselves. I mean, they can create hefty salaries for themselves. So now instead of getting, for example, $1 million a year, they can pay themselves 10, 20, $30 million a year, so that
Mm-hmm.
now they don't have to pay a lot of that doesn't go into taxes.
That's
They'll
right.
still have to account for it in their personal taxes, but people are always going to look into loopholes, which actually goes back to the initial premise that I presented of capitalism being elevated above Christianity, because we have a need for greed in our country, unfortunately. And although we try to position ourselves as a quote unquote Christian nation,
Come on.
you know, we've fallen short on too many occasions, starting with the original foundation of this land.
Yes.
So i- if we're going to do it and do it the right way, don't I would say don't get caught up in what would Jesus do, but let's step back and focus on what did Jesus do.
Amen.
Well said.
That is so so true. That
Mm-mm-mm.
is so true because what did Jesus do? It was the Pharisees and the Sadducees that was not very caring towards the people. They was more
Right.
into the laws, and they kind of like overlooked a lot of people, and but this is what I would like to say, or like the hurting of the people, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I'm, I think there's a lot of great mega churches out there, and
Mhm.
that's doing a great service to the community. They got the community involved, and they reaching out hands towards community. They help the community build the community up. I think that is absolutely awesome. But we're talking about the ones today that know they should be ashamed of themselves, that know they're not doing a service to the community, but a service to themselves. That's what we're talking about.
We're talking about the biggest one is the televangelists, but in terms of mega churches, again, like Lissette said, I'm not generalizing, but what we're finding, one of the problems with a lot of churches is they don't like for you to have information.
That's
Don't
right.
challenge me. I'm a man of God. Why are you challenging me? And as much as I'm trying to be uh, impartial and say there's a lot that's doing great, we're finding out with every single year reports It's very few and far in between. That's the
Oh,
problem. If it
that's
was half, I get it, but it's
right.
a very small percentage. I'm seeing mega churches that are doing great things in the community, but the pastor has a $3.2 million house and it's tax free because what's it called when they get a house? Uh, darn it.
Parsonage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. How you have a $10 million home that's parsonage, and there are people in your congregation that have a family of five and they're staying in a duplex with two
That's
bedrooms.
interesting.
And now I'm not saying it's the preacher's responsibility, the church's responsibility to get everybody, a home that fits the size of their house. But what Johnny said earlier was churches, and some churches do, so we don't want to say they don't, have programs to where we're educating people, teaching people
Yes.
entrepreneurship, teaching people how financial literacy,
Yes.
financial literacy, that would help the community way more than a fish fry.
It sure would. They
Sure.
have build them up.
Financial
For
literacy.
sure.
One thing I wanted to ask you was, I'm going to show a black preacher now that did a thing on titles, right? Because we got
Mm-hmm.
a lot of apostles, prophets running around, right?
You want to
So
tell
I
it?
want to get you guys is because Harold, I thought about you because we had this conversation a very long time ago. But let's watch this. I downloaded the video instead of sharing, so hopefully the sound should work for everybody.
Okay.
If you run up on somebody who called himself a prophet, run away. Because God has no more prophets. There are no more apostles. The last apostle was John, and he died on the Isle of
Patmos.
Was it skipping or was it playing normal?
They play normal.
Normal.
Okay, I'm gonna start it back over again. It was skipping on my end. Okay, here we go.
I didn't.
If you run up on somebody who called himself a prophet, run away.
Harold, you said you can't hear it?
Yeah, I didn't hear it.
Ah, no, you're the one I want to hear it the most.
For sure.
Go. I mean, I've heard a number of his sermons, so go ahead and play it, and then based on certain commentary. But
Okay, all right. Here, but Lessette and Clarence, you
I can
guys,
hear it.
right?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. One more time. Sorry, audience.
If you run up on somebody who called himself a prophet, run away. Because God has no more prophets. There are no more apostles. The last apostle was John, and he died on the Isle of Patmos. I have a preacher who calls himself a cardinal. It's not going to be long before we're going to have a pope in the Black Baptist Church. Because bishop is not good enough. Cardinal is not going to be good enough after a while. After a while, we're going to have a pope. What's wrong with being pastor? What's wrong with just being a preacher? Everybody wants to have some special knowledge. God is not giving anybody any esoteric knowledge. The only knowledge you and I have now comes from reading the scripture. If you run up on some...
This is really good. Can I jump in there right quick before I lose it?
Yeah, I want you to because I found this clip because I'm like, why is everybody an apostle?
Look,
Those aren't around anymore. Everybody needs a title now, and like
you
he
know
said,
what?
what's wrong with being pastor?
You know what? You know what's interesting about that? Notice how he said, "What's wrong with being a pastor?" That was one of the labels and the titles that in that little. He said, "I've given you apostles, evangelists, prophets, teachers, pastors for the working of the ministry." In other words,
Mhm.
he kept the pastor part, but he wanted to do away with the apostle and evangelist and the prophet. I believe there is still apostles and evangelists and teachers and all those things. And sometimes people get into this little groove where I want to be chief over everybody else. I mean, I want to be the most. I want to be the most of all everybody else. But it is what it is. And he said, you can only get the word now by reading the Bible. No, God can actually give you. He can actually speak to you.
No, that's not what he means. That's not what he's saying.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what he said.
No, no, that's not what he said though.
He said that you can only your only word we got now is the word in the Bible. Did he not say that? You know what he just said?
But you
I
understand
heard him say that.
what he's saying though.
Okay. Well, I'm not for all that.
It's Yeah, it's a little challenging when you got that short of a clip because I heard that entire sermon
Yeah,
some time ago. But the challenge with the word or the title apostle is it literally means those that walked with Christ.
Yes. That's why there's no more
You know,
apostles.
and so outside of that's why Paul had so many challenges with that particular title. His work was still, what it was, for the church after he did what he did to attempt to destroy the church. However, based after his conversion, and technically he was literally converted by his vision that or his interaction with Jesus Christ, or the risen Savior. However, but the actual term apostle means one who walked with Christ. Now, many can say it has been worn out, overused, misinterpreted, or misused. However, whatever the case may be, at the end of the day, when you look at all of those titles, servant has the most significant.
exactly.
And if
Come on,
we're not a servant of him,
come
if
Correct.
on,
we're not connected to him, then all that is being done is for naught. And
come on.
it's done for vainglory as opposed to his glory.
Right. And the chief thing of what he's saying is, again, what we've been talking about, you're worrying about all of these things and you're getting away from the message and
Love.
what you're supposed to be doing. Who cares? Who cares about your title? You can get the fanciest robe you want and call yourself cardinal, bishop to the third power, whatever you want. But if you ain't doing what you're supposed to do, and words are important, and that's why I interrupted, because words are important. We always want to change the meaning of things to fit it what we want, and that's why you have what we have today. You can call yourself an apostle all you want, but apostle means something. So somebody can say, well, we can still have apostles. No, you can't. That's not what an apostle means. That's the point.
Right.
We give ourselves these titles and it allows us to do more or do things. And because I have this hierarchy of titles that I've now made, I have more authority on what I'm telling you from the message from God. When what he's saying is anybody can pick up this book and read it. This isn't some special book that only I can translate.
Come on.
I'm here to help you understand what's in this book. I'm here to teach you the message of God in Jesus. But you can also pick it up and read it. You're not slow. You understand what a lot of these words mean.
Of
So
course.
I always find it funny that there are people that have been going to church for 30, 40 years. They've never actually read the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
They've gone to church. They've looked at the verse that was told to be pointed to that day,
Mm-hmm.
and they've carried on. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, because Harold, you've done this. Harold does a lot of speaking, and he'll point out something in the Bible, and he'll have people that have been going to church 40, 50 years ago. That's not in the Bible. Am I wrong, Harold? And you're like,
No, that's
yes,
true.
it
I
was.
mean,
And listen,
and to give you,
go ahead.
you know, this is why when I get on a lot of different lives and different programs and we talk and people want to talk about the Bible, and especially if they're attacking certain groups,
Mhm.
I said, you never know who God's going to use to do his work,
That's right.
and I had to
Says that too
elevate
all the time.
not long ago on a particular TikTok live that I was a part of where they were attacking the LGBTQ community, you know, and abomination. And I mean, they used every term that they could think of. And then I asked the
Mm-hmm.
question, I said, well, are you telling me that God can't use people in that community? And of course, those who were staunch in their belief, in their faith, and in their premise, you know, was speaking very, very anti this, anti that. So once I revealed to them that King James was a part of the LGBTQ community when he ordered the Bible to be translated from Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic into English, all you could see, it's almost like you suck the oxygen out of the room. So you're attacking some group, not even knowing your own history. If God can tell a donkey to prophesy to a prophet at the time,
Come on.
why can't he use
Come on.
someone from any group of life or group to do his work for the benefit of his people? So, I mean, if we truly believe in the power of God and we believe for certain lifestyles are wrong, then you put it in God's hands and let God transform that individual. That's just my belief, my faith, and that's where I will stand from today until I die, on believing in the power of God and how God can transform and salt people. Because guess what? If we go back to slavery, all of those revivals that took place from the Great Awakening to the Azusa Street revival, and even to Oral Roberts and Billy Graham running around here. If the power of God was so strong, why did it root out racism in America?
Come on.
Let's have the conversation. So
Come on.
when I sit and talk, I try to make sure I've done research, I've done the analysis, I've done whatever needed to be done, so that if I'm speaking truth in alignment with God's word and the evidence of what God or through Jesus has done. So when we move forward, we got to make sure that we're giving people the unadulterated truth. I may not agree with you, but I'm going to tell you what thus said the Lord or what thus said the Bible at the end of the day. And you can bank on that particular piece. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure we don't focus on what would Jesus do. Again, going back to what did Jesus do? And he did not negate, he did not push away, he did not exclude anyone in the work that he did, even up to the cross. So if he included everybody, we need to be inclusive, and that's how transformation and that's how God's power works.
Right, because these other groups of people ain't going anywhere. I'm part of the LGBT community, and I give Lessette a voice every Monday. I mean, she could do it on her own, but I produce a show every Monday, 2 Mondays a week for her to do that. And if I was so staunch and evil and demonized, why would I give her the platform to do that and sit here and listen to her talk
All right.
about that? And when Harold had a conversation with me, I told him I had a conversation with a woman. She said, "Well, I don't agree with Muslims because they're the only people that kill for the name of God." I was like, "You've never read the Bible."
Come on now. That's not true.
And I always tell her, she said, people in our religion, we don't kill, we don't do. I said, you think when Moses and his people wandered the desert for all those years, when they came up on people with resources, they just asked for it nicely?
No telling
Hey,
you.
give us all your water, please,
No.
and that
No
food.
telling.
I said, so again, it just amazes me that there are people who have just never actually read it. The one thing I can say, even though I always say I'm not super religious, one thing I can say about the Bible, for as much as people will love it or bastardize it, is it does not pull any punches and it does not hide bad things that were done. It's right there.
It's right there.
It's not hidden.
Come
You
on.
can see it for yourself. And so
Yes.
that's one of my biggest problems. What I want to do is I want to go around because we want to end on a positive note. Wait, we gotta.
Got some comments. Yeah.
Let's see. Jill, faith is not logical. The widow who was skeptical gave her last. She blessed the prophet. Her supplies did not run out. And through her son,
But
And
her
then
son did
her
die.
son
oh,
died.
I got you.
Through the prophet, God raised her son up again.
Right.
I remember that scripture.
But contextually, there was obedience that was there. The prophet asked her,
Yeah.
and she obeyed, and then when her son died, God was made manifest.
It
Yes.
wasn't about what she gave.
Right.
It was her
It was
faith.
about the obedience.
And you know what?
Her obedience.
It's
Right.
very. Look, I love that you said that because that's the very root of what I'm talking about. There are so many stories in the Bible of people giving and being blessed, and then people will take that word give and
Right.
attribute it to money.
Right.
It wasn't money. There
No.
were people that were given, again, obedience, given their loyalty, given their faith,
Yes.
but not they, a lot will take it and attribute to that give to money,
Right.
even in a time where money didn't even exist.
Come on.
Hmm.
Come on.
Ken Stevens has said it was some gangsters in the Bible, and Johnny replied with, Paul was a gangster.
because Moses was a what do you call it? Um,
Murder.
Murderer.
he was a murderer, but he was a when you skip town. What do you call it? When you
Yes.
skip town, you kill somebody, but you skip town.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, fugitive.
Fugitive.
What's the gangster way to say it?
No,
You
Okay.
skip town. I guess that's the gangster way.
Well,
I don't remember the term, but I know where you're going.
yes.
Okay. All right, let's give some final thoughts. Clarence.
My final thought is just listen to Harold. That's a blessing right there. You're pretty awesome. Let me just
Thank
say
you, sir.
that first. You're welcome. Let me just say that.
That is
Thank you.
a wealth of knowledge. That he's never
That's
heard me say this.
it's tremendous.
He literally is the only reason why I have some resemblance of Christianity and religion in my body.
Come on
If
now.
it wasn't for him, I'm being 100% honest. He ain't never heard me say this. If
Come
it
on.
wasn't for him, I would be an atheist.
Come on.
If it wasn't for him, I would definitely be an atheist. We don't even have the time to go through my path and why I would, but it's conversations with him is why I'm not.
Let me conclude by saying this. We should stop putting people up on pedestals. Okay? People want to be called apostles and all of that because it's harder for you to challenge them. How do you challenge an apostle? He's an apostle. He's the man of God. We should stop putting people on pedestals. If you're a pastor, you're a pastor. If you're a preacher, you're a preacher. Okay? You don't have to pretend to be all that in order to ask for more money, in order to misguide people easily. So we should look at people as equals. We're equal in Christ. Stop looking at the notion of when we die, I'm going to a greater place than you because I gave more and I live better than you and all that kind of stuff. And try to love one another. The whole thing is supposed to be about loving one another. And the problem with too many mega churches and televangelists and so forth, the love is simply not there. The love of Christ, we talk about Christ all the time, but the love of Christ is simply not there. And I'll conclude with that.
Lissette?
I would like to say that this has been a great discussion, and I really appreciate Harold and Clarence for coming on the show. I just want to say that I agree with Clarence. It's about the love. God uses whom He wants to use. You know what? And you know what? We all have got some stinking mess on us, and we all need Christ to get the stinking stuff off. And I'm gonna say stanky instead of stinky. Stanky. We all had stanky junk on
Go
us,
ahead.
and sometimes we still make a load on us, and we have to ask God to cleanse us with His precious blood. And if you got it like that where you can draw people like that to a magnitude, that's wonderful. And when you are saying something, people don't mind giving for the cause. But if you got to make somebody and put stipulations, you got to pay this and you got
Come on,
something wrong. Maybe you ain't doing what you say you doing. Maybe you ain't got it like you say you got it, because people don't mind giving to the cause. And once you give, you need to give back. You need to give back to the community. Make sure that your congregation are being fed. Make sure they got a place to stay. Just don't be happy, living the big life and living off people. That is not Christ. It's not God. It's not. It's not love. Whether you got
amen.
Christ or not, it's just not love. And I would just say I just had a great time on the show. So thank you.
Harold?
Awesome.
Well, again, thank you all for the opportunity for coming on today. I appreciate the invitation and definitely appreciate having these types of discussions. It's not often that you get a chance to talk to like-minded individuals in the faith on various platforms, but I'm just grateful for this opportunity. And I want to encourage people to focus on relationship, you know, not
Yes.
religion.
Come on.
What's important is your relationship with God and not the religion that's been man-made and also used to manipulate the Word of God. So as we move forward, I'm hoping that not just those that are able to, I guess, that are currently on and that are listening to this, and that may be watching in the future or revisiting at some point. Focus on your relationship with Him, and He will give you the discernment on who to help, when to help, and how to help. Because at the end of the day, and I've often, this one other I guess, seed I'll plant today. And I see myself always as a planter. I'm
Yes.
always sowing seeds. That's what I believe my faith is all about. And when you sow seeds of love, you can expect a harvest of love.
Come on.
But one of the things I want you to consider is when we look at the Ten Commandments, and I shared this with John some time ago, versus the two commandments. I tell people two is greater than 10 because in the
Yes.
Ten Commandments, the word love does not exist.
Mm-hmm.
The word love doesn't exist anywhere in the Ten Commandments.
Mm-hmm.
You go back and check it. And if
Mm-hmm.
you need to check me on it, call me up, hit me up, whatever the case may be, and I'll eat my words. I don't have a problem with that. But the word love is not in the Ten Commandments. But the word is in both of the two commandments that Christ gave us,
Yes.
loving God and loving your neighbor as yourself. So I
Yes.
want to encourage people to embrace the two in lieu of the 10. And I guarantee you, in doing so, because you'll love God first, you'll be able to have that vertical connection, and then you'll be able to love your neighbor
Mm-hmm.
after you're able to love yourself. You can't love anyone without loving you first. So
Yes.
do that, and I promise you, the kingdom of heaven will be pleased and your life will be transformed. With that said, I'm good.
Awesome.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad you didn't say you'll land your plane because you saved that for our show. Your last commandment that you gave
Awesome.
kind of ties into what I was going to say. And can you say that second commandment of Christ again?
Say again.
Say that second commandment of Christ again.
It says love your neighbor as yourself, but you can't love your neighbor unless you love yourself.
I love the second commandment because, and I always say this, and not to alienate, because we have people that watch this show that aren't Christian and they love it. I have friends that are Buddhist, Hindu, atheist, Christian, all wonderful people, not one of them evil. They always have my back. You got to live in this world with a lot of people who are going to believe what you believe and don't believe what you believe. It doesn't make them any lesser or any greater than you. Live and be happy. Tina Turner's a prime example. She was Christian her whole life, even though she did some other things and was married to a person that didn't do her right. She wasn't happy. She became Buddhist. She was extremely happy. I'm not going to become Buddhist. I'm Christian. I'm happy. But who am I to tell her her happiness is wrong? At the end of the day, we all got to answer to one person if we're right.
That's right.
History tells us that we are the religion of whoever conquered us. You can read into that how you want. But what you can't do is change the way somebody feels, what somebody has seen, and what somebody has experienced. So, my final message to everybody out there, whether you're Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, it's not my job to sway you to come over to my side. My job is love yourself. And if you love your neighbor, even if I'm the one who's right about being Christian, you might find your way where we are. Thank you all for this show. Thank you all for today. And everyone who commented, you have a great day. Ken, Jill, Johnny, and anyone who was out there listening that didn't comment, you guys have a great day, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you. Appreciate y'all.
Bye. Thank you.